Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Bi-Weekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Okay, as the hour is 7 o'clock, I will call the meeting to order. Good evening, Exeter. Good evening to my colleagues on the board, respective town staff here this evening, those in attendance, and certainly those watching from home. Welcome to the October 16th, 2023 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. I'd like to start the meeting by introducing the board. To my right, Selectman Dan Chartrand. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
To my left, our clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman.
Good evening, everyone.
And Selectwoman Nancy Belanger. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Our town manager, Mr. Rustine. Good evening.
Good evening.
Our recording secretary, Joanna Bartel. Good evening, Joanna.
Good evening.
My name is Nico Papakostandis, and the vice chair, Molly Cowan, will be with us in a few minutes. She's running a little bit late, but she's asked that we start on time. First matter of business this evening is not on the agenda, but we do have several bids to open for the Kingston Road grant. Madam Clerk?
Is this the sidewalk?
This is the sidewalk.
Nice.
Yeah.
Progress.
Start with those.
And I'm excited that we have multiple bids, because those folks have been waiting an awful long time for this to be completed.
Yes, we have a total of 4 bids for this project.
Terrific. And Mr. Dean, when do we anticipate work will begin?
We anticipate, if all goes well, that work would begin in the spring.
Spring of 24.
24.
Sorry.
And we're just reading the extended total, Mr. Dean?
Yes.
Okay. The first bid is, and this is for the Kingston Road TAP project. First bid is from the company. Oh, the first bid is from CMA Engineers. And the total bid is for $101,000 even. That's 101,000. Okay, Madam Clerk, the second bid. Madam Clerk, CMA Engineers is incorrect. The bidder, Mr. Dean, did not put the name of the company.
Is it on the bid bond? Is there a bid bond in the package?
I thought that was strange.
So this was the first packet that you opened?
Yes. I have a name here, Mr. Dean, but I want to make sure that that's the...
There should be a construction bid price along with the bidder's name.
I mean, this is their insurance policy. Okay, it looks like it is Berg, B-E-R-G, Contracting and Construction,
Okay.
and that was the first bid for $101,000.
And where are they from?
That's William, New Hampshire.
Sorry, just want to borrow this.
Yep. So I have the name of the next one, Madam Clerk, but I'm trying to find where they're from.
What's the name? I wrote
I have it
down.
right here. It is S-U-R, S period U period R period Construction from Rochester, New Hampshire. Total bid of $101,000 even. Thank you.
Sorry if there was any confusion on that. The total bid is right here. For the last bid.
Oh, okay.
So we want to read that, and that's the number we want to read. Yeah.
Okay. Madam Clerk, we're going to go back to the first one.
On Berg.
Yep.
Okay.
$1,860,307.55. I'll give you that again. It's 1,860,307.55. And let me just double check the second one.
Yeah.
Can't read the writing. I'm going to ask your help. It's 1,900,000. Is that a, Even how they-
956.
even the letters I can't make out.
Yeah, 1956.
490?
Yep.
So it's 1956490. That was for SUR.
Wait a minute, 1956. Sorry.
It's okay.
He put the numbers in my head and they immediately went out after the.
Well, I'm glad he wrote them out, or she wrote them out. The next one is DBU Construction. And they're from Epsom. You ready for the bid? $1,589,205. That's 1589205. And where did the earth one go? Do you have that one there? It's the one we just did. We're missing one. Is there one in there?
Oh, you have it. I have the
Which ones
SUR.
You have SUR, do you have DBU?
No.
Okay. This is the last one.
Yes.
DBU Construction?
No, it should be Earth Mechanics.
Yeah, I just read you this one. Russ, do you have another one down there?
I do not.
Is it in that envelope?
Oh, possibly.
That's SUR. Here it is. So it's earth from Pittsfield. $1 million. This is the one that was handwritten, Madam Clerk.
1956490.
490. Do you have all 4 bids there?
No, I need,
Which one are we listing?
I got SUR in the wrong.
SUR is right in my hand.
Okay, wait a minute.
That's wrong.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
$1,996,395. I just need this one. This one goes here. This one goes here. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would you entertain a motion?
I would love to entertain a motion for the bids.
I'd like to make a motion that we send these bids to the appropriate department and department head for a recommendation on which to accept.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to come up before the board with any comments. We do ask, though, that if your comments are pertaining to anything on the agenda, that you wait till that discussion item comes up. I'll pause a moment and also look to see if there's anybody online. And there is not. Okay. We do not have any proclamations or recognitions this evening. I would skip to the regular meeting minutes of our October 2nd, 2023 meeting. First, ask the board if there are any amendments or revisions. No. Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes of October 2nd,
So moved.
2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Okay, we'll move right into our discussion items, the first of which is public hearing on the water and sewer rates. This is the second public hearing. This was continued from last month. I would first entertain a motion to open the public hearing on the water and sewer rates.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. The public hearing is opened. Mr. Dean, did you have any opening remarks?
Just that the board held a hearing on September 11th for the water sewer rates, and the town commissioned a consultant, Underwood Engineers, to do a water sewer rate study, which they did do, and we've made that accessible to the public. And the rate recommendations were made at the hearing on September 11th. There was a recommendation made to increase the water rates by 19.87% and the sewer rates by 4%, along with adopting some graduated meter charges according to the water sewer rate study.
Okay.
So that's what's on the table tonight.
Thank you. And for the record, our Vice Chair, Selectman Molly Collins, joined us. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Apologies for being late.
And also, for the record, for those watching at home, the presentation that the consultant made to the board last month is in our packet this evening for referral. And with that, I would open it up to the public for any comments, questions. Mr. Gruder, and if you just state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. John Gruder, 3 Sterling Hill Lane, Unit 313. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak. I started this about 15 months ago. I've been here a few times in other committees as well. I sent you, have a little recap if you haven't printed it out, but and most of the points I brought up before, but just for someone or anyone who may be listening, about 2 years ago, Sterling Hill a couple of owners were concerned about the water bills, and on their own organized a committee and set about to fix every running toilet, dripping faucet, educate people on what they should do, and they volunteered to do most of the work. Over a 2-year period, we saved over 400,000 gallons of water, so it's pretty impressive. And I think we have a couple of folks here from the villages at Sterling Hill, which is a sister property, who have been, well, I've been giving information to them, things they can do, get, a lot of the paperwork and forms that we put together, we're sharing with them so they can also save hopefully 400,000 gallons of water over a couple of years. And as I said, we average less than 75 gallons per unit, which is much lower than a single-family home would be in town. But because we have one meter, to my understanding, that the town doesn't profit having 10 meters of one, because the cost of the meter is just to cover the administrative and the billing part of the water bill. But because of that, and we have 4 buildings of 32 units each, and 1 meter per building, so about 50 to 60% of our water bill comes from Tier 3. So we're treated almost like a commercial customer. And my argument is, or my hope is, that we can straighten that out. We don't need to have 32 meters in a building. 1 is fine if the town's not making money on it. And I made this point before, but we're paying 1 bill for 32 people, 4 bills, or actually 5 bills because we have a clubhouse for 128 people. Never been late. I don't think anyone's ever chased us for a dime. And I believe there's probably more than 1 or 2 delinquencies in town where people are paying individually. As I reviewed everything for the rate study and read the 2016 rate study again, it dawned on me that maybe, and I don't know the legality of this, whether there could be a commercial and a residential fee. Tiers for the commercial and tiers for the, I don't want to pay, I don't think we should have to pay as much as Lindt Chocolate pays for our water, and they're in Stratham. So that's where I want to go, and I don't have, I don't think we've ever had any questions on this. You've all listened attentively, but is there something I'm missing? Is there something you don't understand that I'm thinking differently?
Mr. Chartrand?
Before we made any decision on this, I'd need to know how many other customers are in a similar situation, what impact that would have on our revenues. There's a lot that goes into this. And I'm not in favor of the board waving a magic wand tonight and saying, we're going to solve this problem for you. It's just every move you make as a water and sewer commissioner has impacts that you may not be aware of. So we have to study the heck out of this stuff.
And the moves that were made years ago have had an impact on us. And they
No, I understand. No, I totally
20
understand.
years for some people.
I understand your point.
And it was only because our committee invited a couple, I'm on the homeowners board, and invited the board members to attend a meeting, and that was the first time, let's see, at that point I had lived in Sterling Hill 5 years. I had never seen a water bill, but I have in my career have seen many large water bills for communities and from around New Hampshire and into Florida. And so I didn't realize we had the tier system, so I would have been here earlier.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think we should be continued to be penalized because we don't want to make any rash decision. And I don't want you to make a rash decision tonight, but I wanted to have a discussion on it. If I'm missing something, let me know.
No, I just to finish my thoughts. You had a developer that made the choice to put 1 meter in
Right.
instead of a meter for each unit. That's kind of unfortunate. And I understand your point of view on things, but we have to be very careful when we make carve-outs and exceptions that we're not impacting the system
I
negatively.
don't want an exemption for, Sterling Hill. I mean, I think if you do this, you need to do it for any HOA or condo association. The HOA probably wouldn't be billing all at once, they bill separately, but any other condo association, I mean, you couldn't do for one and not do for the other. You might consider a rental, something that, the Chinburg buildings, that's maybe more commercial than, than a community like ours with 128, 55 and older homeowners.
Yeah, you and I are in agreement then. We shouldn't do anything tonight. We need to study this.
I don't, if you want to do something, I'm all for it.
I don't want to do
I'm just
anything
saying, I know I realize you have to think about it and have a discussion on this.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I don't know when that happens.
Yeah, it's something, it's something that we'd have to study. But I understand your point of view
And
completely.
you just paid for a study, and I've been through that, and I'm sure you all did too. And there's some things that I disagree with in that, that you made a point one time at a planning board meeting, when you were on the board, about putting in a new water line and how and you made a comment, and I never called you on this, but it was something about, I was asking a question in what was the guy's name, Berube? Was it Matt?
Matt.
Yeah. He had said something, and he goes, well, the people like Lint, the commercial accounts subsidize the other residential units. Well, I kind of feel that's what we're doing, and we're not a commercial account. If someone like a Lint, and I don't know the other water customers that might be out of town. I don't know whether Timberland must be then, I guess, as well. But
Well, just to summarize my remarks, I'm sympathetic to your plight.
okay, well, thank you.
But I don't feel that it's within our purview tonight to act on.
Okay. Did the note I sent you about creating the separate residential and commercial, is that something that could be considered? Is that something that we could even do, or you could even do, You have to get a legal opinion, or?
Well, it was attractive to me, I will say that. But I agree with Selectman Chartrand, is that we have to get our water and sewer people to look at similar circumstances, because I don't know how many projects are like that, where there's just one meter with, hundreds of units. That's really unfortunate.
Yeah, and I contacted a couple of the management companies, and both were going, even the one that manages our property, and they weren't real cooperative. I said, can you just tell me who it is? Give me a name of someone on the board, I'll go talk to them. And like the two management companies in town, they got nothing for them. Our neighbors in the villages, obviously we know each other, and, they're about to implement the water saving thing, so we've been in touch a lot. Any other question? But
Did you have anything to add?
I don't have anything at the moment. I need numbers.
And I agree, John. I mean, I think, you're asking for us to consider some options, and I think that that's a fair thing to do, is to consider. I don't think making a decision tonight would be a prudent thing to do, not only for you, but
need to know the ramifications.
we need to know we need to know how many other properties are in the same situation that you're in, and what unintended consequences would there be for maybe some other properties.
I suppose the unintended consequence was that the single-family Tier 1 people might have a rate increase, right? I mean, I understand that the town needs the same amount of money to run the water and sewer department, right? Whether we're paying this much or this much.
That's right.
Someone has to pay it, and I get that. But in fairness, it shouldn't be our burden all the time.
No, and I agree with Selectman Chartrand. I mean, I completely empathize with the situation that you're in, and unfortunately, that's the route the builder went.
Right.
But I think the fair thing to do is to honor your request that we will look into this. When I say study, I don't mean paying for
Right.
a robust study that we just did. We don't need to do that, but certainly we need to do our homework. Collaborate with the Water and Sewer Committee, the Water Department, Mr. Dean, do some research as to how many properties are in the same boat. Do our due diligence and have you come back. But I think the conversation stays open, John.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
and you are absolutely right that the ratepayers pay for all this. So if there's a break for one class or group of ratepayers, those dollars are going to get shifted elsewhere across all the other classes and groups. So we have to just be very
But
careful.
in fairness, this group shouldn't have to be the ones paying the little extra premium now.
Yeah, I don't know. We need to look at that.
And what I've read.
I can't assent to that statement tonight.
And what I've read in the study, the administrative and billing is about 25% of the budget. And we only have these 5 meters and we want to have 228 of them. So that's 6% of the town's water customers, if you did it that way. About 6%. So, and Nico, to your point, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but to your point, I lost my thought there, but you were, we're, I think, getting penalized, and I just don't think, I think in fairness, and if we work out, like I said, if it happens to be, and it's other towns must do it. I do some work in Londonderry at another condo, and there's 200 units, and they pay the same rate as everyone else in Londonderry that are on, it's a Pennachuck water line that runs through, but it's all the same. That's why I was surprised to find it like the 3 tiers here.
Did you?
Just to go back in the history books and look at, there was a time when we had, obviously we're talking about a few meters and capturing the bulk of the revenue from the consumption tiers. And that wasn't always how the system worked. We made a conscious decision back in 2006 to actually go to that system, and we've been on it ever since, and it was to encourage water conservation, which it sounds like Sterling Hill has done a great job of doing. So that's one comment. Another comment is just that I think to your point, Mr. Chair, I think we need to look at multiple properties and see and do that deep dive and sort of look at what the ramifications might be. So I'm agreeing with the consensus that I'm hearing.
Okay.
There's a few of my neighbors.
Everybody that wants to speak gets an opportunity to speak, but I will say, Mr. Gruder, that we will continue to look into this, and the dialogue remains open. And obviously, once we've done our research, we'll reach out to you. We'll bring it back to this body.
So you all have my email now.
We do.
And your email was very succinct and well-written. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
Thank you, John.
Talk softly so I don't cough. I just came back from a trip to Ireland, and John told me when you go to Ireland, whatever you do, you just don't drink the water over there. I said, John, they don't have water in Ireland. My name is Bob Ryan. I live at 1 Sterling Hill Lane, Unit 123, and I'm on the Finance Committee, and I'm involved in the budgeting process. And we've watched the water and sewer rates going up, and we're now paying about we're budgeting this year $105,000. It's our single largest expense. And with the projections coming up, we're a little nervous about that. We're an over 55 community. I took a look at the building I'm in, Building 1, and I looked at the first quarter this year, and our first quarter billing showed 190,000 gallons of usage. And if I divide it by the units involved, the 32 units, we come down to less than 6,000. So we'd all be a Tier 1 rate. Billing is, 5% of our billing is Tier 1. So if we were to calculate this out and say we're all at a Tier 1 rate, our bills for this building as well as the entire complex would come down by about 25%. And that's why we're looking at this. In terms of the demographics, we're really being charged a commercial rate, but we're a corporation. And I guess as you look at the dynamics here, we're a nonprofit corporation versus for profit. There are profitable corporations out there, landlords, who are passing through their increases. And they can do that. We have difficulty passing them through because of the fixed income situations within our residents. So I guess what I'm looking at is there are several complexes around here. I know Cornerstone has got their own metering. If you look at associations that are nonprofit only, and you look at the ones that are separately metered and factor them out, I think when you look at the analysis, you're going to come down to a small number. And I don't think it's going to make a major difference in the rate structure. So we're really appealing on the issue of fairness more than anything else. Excuse me, Mike, losing my throat. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
So you quoted a 105,000 number. What is that?
The 105,000 is our annual billing.
Okay.
For 5 buildings, 4 buildings in our clubhouse, 105,000.
Roughly 125 customers?
128.
128 units. So that's interesting. Can I do a little math with you?
Sure.
105,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And bills are sent out quarterly, so I'm going to divide by 4.
25,000.
And then I'm going to divide the 26,250 by 128.
Okay.
Which would mean your average person's bill is $205.
Quarterly.
Quarterly. I pay more than that quarterly as a tier 1. Just heads up.
Mm-hmm.
Careful what you ask for.
Well,
and that's rough napkin, and I'm sure there's lots of permutations, and that may not be right, but
no, I think
I don't know if you're off that much by what tier 1 ratepayers are paying. Just doing that back of the napkin kind of calculation. But we can check it out.
Yeah, I know taking this one bill for the quarter for that building and taking the rates and using the tier 1 rate.
Oh, I'm sorry, is 105 a quarterly bill?
No, 105,000 is the annual bill. But I'm looking at one of the 4 buildings, and that building comes for $6,585. 5% of theirs is a tier 1 rate. Mm-hmm. If I use a tier 1 rate for all of the billing, that bill would come to $49.56. Or 24.7% less.
Okay.
It makes sense then that the 100,000 would come in at about 24% less. The difference is going to be the admin cost, because we're only paying 1 service fee per bill. We only have 1 meter, and the premise is that the admin costs are break even, and you don't have to have 128 meters, you don't have 128 bills, collecting and admin costs and everything else involved. So somewhere in that balance is where this difference is between the numbers we're looking at.
Yeah.
But again, I would ask you to remember, there is a differentiation as you look at commercial rates between nonprofit corporations and for-profit corporations. Thank you.
Can I just add,
Please.
that number is just the water. You separated out the water bill from the sewer bill, right?
No, it's water and sewer combined, 105,000 a year.
Okay.
And that's our single biggest expense now.
My rate is larger, and now maybe I'm not conserving as much as you all are.
Yeah.
That could be the answer.
Yeah,
but
no, I just wanted
it's interesting that when you break
Which
it
is
down,
water?
when you break it down, no, it's water and sewer.
Okay.
Yeah, I pay more than that as a tier 1 user.
List of water-saving items.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, John. I'll collect that from you later.
Well, thank you for your time.
Can I
Thank
ask
you,
you
sir.
one more? I'm sorry.
Of course,
Mr. Chair,
please,
may
yeah.
I just, when you're talking about per unit and trying to figure all that out, I'll let Dan do the math on that. Do you have laundry facilities in your condos, or do you have or a facility room?
We have laundry facilities in each condo. We have 2 bedrooms, 2 baths.
Yeah, no,
Yep.
so and do you have like a facility room too? In your buildings?
We would have a
Northbrook
we have a-
has their condos have the washer and dryer, and then they also have a facilities room where they have.
No, we
them,
have a
so-
clubhouse, a separate
Okay,
clubhouse.
and that is on its own
That's on
meter?
its own meter.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, the only
Just
thing within each
clarification.
building would be a utility room that the janitorial staff uses in the garage with a sink down there, that's all.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
certainly.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment? Mr. Kelly?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Bob Kelly, 59 Columbus Ave. I'm the chair of the town's Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. I'll start off by saying, and thank you for having a second part of the public hearing so that the Water and Sewer Committee could take a look at this, which we did on September 13th. I've been working with Russ since 2005 or so on doing, these rates every couple of years. Up until 2016, it was basically mostly Russ, and then I would help him QC some of the details with Public Works. But we were doing the rates in-house, and it worked out great. 2016, we had another consultant came in. They did a model, and everything again worked great for 7 years. Underwood came in, did their report, and I was on the working committee, and they did a fantastic job. I agree with pretty much everything that's in the report, as does the entire Water and Sewer Committee. One thing that we learned over the years, Russ and I working on these rates, is that nothing is linear. When you have 30, well, it started off as around 3,400 connections. Now we have around 3,800 in town. You have a rate, you have consumption. There are a lot of variables. And so it's really difficult to predict what expenses might be. And it's also difficult to predict what revenues would be. You sort of make a guess, and then at the end of the year, you adjust if you have to. We have not revised the rates for over 2 years because what we thought 2 years ago was going to only get us a year, maybe 15 months, has actually worked out pretty well. And so now here we are. We're close to, not a deficit situation, but where we need to adjust the rates. But it's not a crisis, and that's over 2 years. So again, things aren't always a linear progression with rates versus consumption or combined with consumption. In fact, some of the calculations, and some of the costs that have been approved over the past few years through the Water Department haven't really even come to fruition, specifically wage impacts. There are a lot of open spaces at Public Works, which is another problem, but we're not booking that expense. There have been several projects, notably the groundwater development project that we've been working on for a number of years, which we have a lot of money that is allocated to that, but we haven't started spending it yet. So again, there are a lot of variables. The second point is that we lost about 10 million gallons last year in our average consumption, primarily due to drought restrictions. There's no reason to believe, especially with the rain that we've had this year and let's say an average forecast for next year, we're going to be getting that 10 million back and the associated revenue associated with that. So I think, as far as the revenue stream, we should be in much better shape than we were in the past year. The other item, and we've talked about this, and this will be another issue, is the fire suppression contribution. For decades, it's been $20,000, which is basically a hydrant or a fire suppression allocation to the general fund from the Water Department that basically covers fire suppression costs. What I think you heard from Underwood a month ago or so is that number is woefully inadequate. And in fact, the AWWA, through their calculations for the size of this town, indicates it should be at a minimum $750,000, not $20,000. They being Underwood, recommended $100,000 to start to get that number into a more reasonable and fair equitable situation so that the water users are not subsidizing fire control for the other 1/3 of the town that, the delta between total tax parcels and the connected water users. So again, if that, and I know there are some budget issues associated with that, but if that goes from 20 to 100,000, that's about a 2%, a little over a 2%, earn back to the Water Department that might not be there if it was at $20,000. And then the other thing that the committee took into account was there have been a lot of demands on the ratepayers this year, notably the siphon project. A lot of money was taken out of reserves, which obviously ratepayers don't see, but the managers, including yourselves, do see that. We took well over $1 million out of a reserve that, between Russ and I, we've carefully curated that reserve over the years, and now it's effectively gone. So there are a lot of reasons. I understand we want to build that up quickly, but the committee had some difficulties in piling on, as it were. There, again, a lot of demands. Water rates have gone up 10% every year for the past 3 years. Our budget is basically tripled since Russ and I first started working on rates in 2005, when a nice little water department budget of $1 million a year. Now it's over $3 million. So the recommendation of the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee was to, instead of doing roughly a 20% increase on water, was to scale that back a little bit to 15%. We looked at it, there was a quorum, and we voted 5-0 to recommend that 15%. Instead of 20 for this year. And again, irrespective of the items I just talked about, the other thing is that a lot of the expenses don't get booked until the second or the third or fourth quarter of every year, specifically on water project expenses. They do try not to do a lot during the summer, which is sort of our tourist season. As you notice, there's a lot of work going on right now. So, and then that would include paving as well. So we'll have plenty of time to assess whether there's a deficit situation toward the end of 2024. The report and the rate study recommends reviewing these every year, which, again, Russ and I have done for over 15 years and keep a pretty close control on this. So I think that there will be plenty of opportunity, if we're getting close to a deficit situation, to adjust the rates next year by whatever is required. So again, the committee would recommend to the select board a 15% increase instead of the 19 and change, almost 20% on the water side. We support the 4% increase on the sewer side, as well as all the other items that were recommended in the Underwood report, which is, I think, articulated on page 15 of the letter report to us. So that would be our 2 cents.
Just a quick question. Was there any discussion about flight path for future years by the Water and Sewer Committee, or did you really just discuss 2024?
We actually did. My other hat being on the Budget Committee, I was able to illuminate.
Thank God, by the way. You're the essential citizen, Bob.
Illuminate some of the water expenses coming down the road, of which there are some significant ones, certainly capital projects between now and 2025, 26. There's no guarantee that any of those are actually going to happen in the next year. There's a lot of discussion. Obviously, we have some other focuses, some general fund projects that we're really hoping to push forward. So we're trying to limit the number of utility projects, especially given what we're doing currently on the siphon project. So there's no guarantees that any of those are going to go forward. And if they do, they really probably wouldn't be looking at borrowing until the end of next year at the earliest, and maybe even 25. Because like I say, we have $1.5 million on the groundwater project that is sort of hanging out there that's been allocated by the town, and we will go forward, and that's going to be a great project. But due to a number of things, it's just not, it's not being expended right now, which means that our expenses are less than what they might have been forecast to be.
So there was no discussion at the Water and Sewer Advisory about we'll do 15 this year, and then we'll be a little more aggressive in following years. That wasn't a discussion.
Well, I think
you really want to look at the circumstance, it sounds like.
Exactly. I mean, what they agreed was, my discussion that it's not a linear process, and so mostly because we didn't want to pile on to the ratepayers, knowing that we've gone over 2 years with our previous rate adjustment and been okay. The thinking was, let's dial it back a little bit and then see how it goes. But there was a general feeling that it's probably not going to be as bad as we thought. One, with the fire suppression allocation, and two, with the release of the drought user restrictions. if we get back 10 million gallons of water usage in the next year, that's a lot of revenue.
Yep.
And so we probably won't need to adjust the rates, like I say, at the earliest until the end of next year.
Thanks for the answers to those questions.
Bob, first of all, I want to reserve most of my thoughts for when board brings it back to deliberate. But first of all, thank you for convening a quorum of the Water and Sewer Committee to give your attention to this. I know that can sometimes be
Molly and
tough.
I'd like to think we constitute a quorum, but that doesn't
We've
go
learned
over
we do
well.
not, yes.
That doesn't go over well.
And your work on that committee as well as the BRC for decades, I think you've saved this town a significant amount of money, so thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm happy that you were able to come to a place above the 10, but where you were comfortable. And again, we'll deliberate on that when we bring it back to the board. But one thing I did want to mention is that though we may not be in quote unquote crisis yet, we did have a crisis this year,
Yes.
last year into this year. And moving forward, we will not have ARPA funds. We will not have congressional funding that we were awarded due to the project and some of the other outside funding sources. So I just want to remind everybody that, and I don't think we can keep going to special town meetings too. So
I would agree.
We had a lot of things go in our favor for this project, but I think moving forward, we have to keep that in the back of our minds when we're looking at our reserve. I just wanted to
Yep.
weigh in on that. Any other
The worry we had is that, this town has grown a reasonable amount, not a lot, but a reasonable amount in the last 10, 15 years. And we are looking at diversifying our water sources from surface water over to groundwater, which we did in 2015 and built a facility. We've allocated money to continue to do that diversification, but our surface water plant is 50 years old, and there will have to be some expenses on that. So again, knowing that those two things are coming down the pike, those are multi-million-dollar, tens of million-dollar projects, that this seemed to be a good time to take the foot off the gas a little bit and just sort of give everybody a break for whatever it is, 9 months or so. It's not great policy, but I think we'll be okay by doing it that way.
I do have one more question.
Go ahead.
I apologize to the rest of the board. The Park Street, there was a project just done over there. How many more neighborhoods like that, sort of in the immediate kind of inner ring of Exeter, need to be renewed? Let's use that word, renewed.
Dozens.
There's still...
I mean, there's one every year. And again, Russ and I on the budget side talk about this every year. Do we keep, it used to be $1 million a project. Well, now it's 3.
Yeah.
And, every time you do a pipeline project, there's, it's not only water, but it's also sewer, it's drainage, it's paving, because now we have all these drainage, impacts, through our MS4 permit. So the projects are more involved, but yeah, I mean, this town, the utilities date back to, at the best scenario, the 1950s, and many of them into the early part of the 20th century. So yeah, there are projects all over. I mean, for instance, Washington Street, we had the emergency there 4 or 5 years ago now. We allocated money to do the utility work.
Right.
But we haven't done the paving yet. I mean, these projects, sort of have a life of their own. There's a lot.
No,
it's a short, sort of trying not to be glib, but there's a lot of projects.
But the answer is dozens.
Dozens. There's a lot of projects to be done in all these little catchment areas around town. We just approved, what was West Side Drive, $6 million?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
$6 million. I mean, West Side Drive, they've been looking for relief for 20 years. And it's not a simple project.
And so I guess my question is leading to the point that if we don't keep a steady stream of projects on the warrant,
right,
we could end up with a neighborhood that is a siphon-like crisis.
Yeah.
And that is not great for property values. I know that for a fact. So I just would argue that we need to keep a steady drumbeat of these neighborhood water and sewer projects going so that we never end up with a neighborhood having the kind of crisis we had with the siphon.
Yeah, and we've been doing that for quite a long time.
I agree.
The problem is you get something like, a new arsenic standard, which in 2005 was 50 parts per billion, then they switched it to 10, and now it's 5. So I can't think of any other aspect of our life that goes down 90% and expects us, expects you to pay for it. So
Welcome to municipal government, right?
Yeah.
This is where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, and then you have the river and the associated nitrogen impacts. And again, we're paying for all that with just 3,800 connections. So it's a big deal.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Kelly?
No, I think you and Dan had pointed out our overall future outlook up to a point, what we could be looking at. So thank you.
I mean, my comments were really summarized by Bob. We did think deliberately about, sort of the changing circumstances of why we could have been where we are, what the landscape looks like, with an eye towards like how do we make this not quite as painful as
Right.
it,
Okay.
Mr. Dean, did you have anything to add? Well, Mr. Kelly's.
No, just I think the comments on the CIP are well founded. I think that there are, Bob referenced, he said there are dozens of projects out there, and I agree with him. The overall health of the water fund is something that is very important. So, I'm looking at the rate increase and thinking it's a reasonable recommendation.
From the water.
From the consultants.
From the consultants.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think just, for numbers purposes, Keith and I were doing some back of the napkin. We think that the difference between 20% and 15% is roughly $350,000 in revenue. And again, the committee's position was that we're going to get 80 of that potentially back on the fire suppression, and then with the 10 million gallons of non-drought related usage over the next year, we thought that would be covered, but just those are our recommendations.
Great.
That's reasonable.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Please, sir.
Yes, I just wanted to come back to Dan and take the question.
Could you just go to the microphone? Thank you.
I want to get back to Dan. As I sat and did some numbers myself.
Good.
The 105,000 you divided by the 128 people goes about $820 a year. But we have our residents. We have a lot of single women up there. Residence structure is probably 1.4 per household, no children. We allowed 30 dogs in the entire complex. That's our pet community. And each one can't weigh more than 20 pounds. We have a private well to handle all our landscaping. So again, we're utilizing some of our own water to try and do that. And I just wanted to try and give you some ideas of why the numbers look the way they do.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a credit to your community that you're using so little water, actually.
It's actually amazing what they were able to save.
Yeah.
I didn't believe they could.
But I was astonished to do that back of the napkin math and realize that you all were paying less than I was. That was what was astonishing.
No, and I wanted to point out the size of the household, too.
Yeah,
In fact, there's no children.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we should close the public hearing.
I would like to offer up, are there any other members of the public?
I'll try to quiet down.
You'll get a chance.
I'm passionate about this water and sewer stuff.
Okay, last call on public comment. Okay. Seeing no others and nobody is zooming in, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. The public hearing is closed. We'll bring it back to the board.
All right, now I'll say what I wanted to say.
Selectman Chartrand, we'll start with you.
I never fail to, when I turn on the tap and clean water rolls on, I never fail to think what a miracle it is that I get that for about $280 a quarter. I really want to say that. This is like the essential thing to having to living in civilization. It's like water and sewer is like a basic, and to get that for $280 a quarter, that seems miraculous to me, especially with a system as small as we have, 3,800 users. I wish it was a bigger system. It would cost less per user, but even at the cost that we currently have, after all the projects we've done, and there are more projects to go, it's kind of a miracle. So I'm happy to pony up my $280 each month. And if the Water and Sewer Committee says 15% is the right number for this coming year, I'll go with that over what the consultants say. But it's a miracle, folks. $280 a quarter, and I get clean water, and my sewer is taken away. Never underestimate how great it is to live in civilization. That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you. And that was worth the wait.
I doubt it.
I don't have anything to add. I do also think it's a miracle.
Yes.
And I also think that we should not, we should be responsive to our constituents and try to be conservative when we are able to be, because things happen.
Yes, they do. Thank you. Selectman Bowman?
I don't know what I have adds to the current situation, but when we did that last study, the outcome of it was a very large jump in the rates that were proposed, and the select board at the time decided to break it up over years. We weren't going to do a 25%. It was a big jump, I remember. So every year we had to do a minimal amount of increase. And, nobody likes it, but it had to be done in order to pay for the things that we knew were coming up and that we already had bonded. So just so you know, we do try to take that into consideration and are very aware of what the impact is on the jumps in recommended rates.
Thank you. Selectwoman Belanger?
No, everyone was right on point as far as I'm concerned. So I think it's just important to recognize the cost of our infrastructure and our water and sewer and our treatment plants and things. And I do want to thank Bob for your analysis and explaining the 15% versus the 20 and where you came up with that, and that you feel it would still be closer to the 20 because of the recouping. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for our consultant while he's here?
Yeah. What do you think of us doing 15%?
Keith Pratt with Underwood Engineers. Thank you. Yeah, I think the fact that you're just addressing the rates and that you're increasing them and you're consciously making some decisions is the right thing to do. I'll just add that, it does create less revenue, but I think our recommendation is you look at these rates every year, and as Bob says, you can readjust accordingly. We know we're going to be doing more rates adjustments next year, and so as long as we're looking at them and making conscious decisions and setting the rates accordingly, I think you're going to be fine.
So it feels okay?
I think it feels okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
It is, it's $300,000 less revenue that we'll have to make up somewhere else. But I think given the dynamics of the budget, I think it'll be okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking that question, because I was going to have to do it. If you did, because
button in there.
No, because I'm going to be honest with you. I came in here tonight with the idea that I wanted to recommend consideration of the 20% that was recommended by our consultants, as opposed to the 10%. And the big thing for me is, again, the miracle of clean water and proper sewer, but also living through what we've lived through in the last year with the siphon project, and knowing that, the cards really fell our way in terms of outside funding, and knowing that probably won't happen again in the future. I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that it's not going to be an if, it's going to be a when. And we need to be able to fund it, and we can't keep emergently going to our citizens at special town meetings at the 11th hour, because that's just not the way to manage this. However, I respect the fact that the Water and Sewer Committee met and deliberated over this, and, Bob, I think your analysis was, I'm happy that you were able to meet halfway, if you will. I think that's a fair thing for the ratepayers. I'm glad the consultant, Keith, I'm glad that you weighed in and that Selectman Chartrand asked that question, because I think we can be maybe happy with the 15% or live with it at least for the next year until we look at it again. But I just want people to be aware that, there will be projects that we know about, and there will be projects that we don't know about, and we're going to need to be able to fund those. So the consensus I'm getting from the board is that the 15% is what we want to recommend. Mr. Dean, that puts me in a little bit of a flux in that my numbers are all 20% numbers, so can you help me out with at least the water rate?
So at 15%, the Tier 1 consumption charge for water would be $10.72 per 1,000 gallons. The Tier 2 consumption charge would be $13.41.
Can you repeat the Tier 1 one more time?
Yes, $10.72 per 1,000 gallons.
Yep.
As opposed to 11.17.
As opposed to 11.17.
So one more time,
10.72.
Thank you, Russ.
You're welcome. And then Tier 2 would be $13.41 per 1,000 gallons.
And that's down from $13.98 for those at home?
And then Tier 3 consumption charge would be $16.08 per 1,000 gallons.
And that's down from $16.76.
Correct.
20%. Okay, the sewer rates stay the same, correct, Mr. Dean?
Sewer would stay the same, yes.
Okay, and what about when crafting the motion, bless you, when crafting the motion, will the numbers with the meter changes change as well?
Yes, you'd want to build those meter charges into the motion.
But are those changed? Those are not changing?
Those are not changing.
Okay, so I'm clear.
Can I ask one more question?
Please, yep.
Of you, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Are these rates increasing as of January 1st?
Yes, 2024.
And then obviously people are on billing cycles, so it impacts.
Correct. Yeah, so the new rates would appear on the January 31st billing.
For the first time.
For the first time.
And then would stagger through. Correct. Because about a third and a third and a third are each each month.
Yes.
Given our quarterly billing.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. This is going to be a lengthy motion, but I'm going to do my best here. I would entertain a motion that the Select Board adopt the following water sewer rates effective with the January 2024 billing cycle. For the water rates, 3/4 inch meter change, $46.75 per quarter. 1 inch meter change, $65.45 per quarter. 1.5 inch meter change, $84.16 per quarter. 2 inch meter change, $135.58 per quarter. 3 inch meter change, $514.29 per quarter. And a 4 inch meter change, $654.54 per quarter.
And you said change, but you meant charge.
Charge, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Tier 1 consumption charge, $10.72 per 1,000 gallons. Tier 2 consumption charge, $13.41 per 1,000 gallons. Tier 3 consumption charge, $16.08 per 1,000 gallons. Sewer rates, 3/4 inch meter charge of $38.48 per quarter. A 1 inch meter charge, $53.87 per quarter. 1.5 inch meter charge, $69.26 per quarter. 2 inch meter charge, $111.59 per quarter. 3 inch meter charge, $423.28 per quarter. And 4 inch meter charge, $538.72 per quarter. The Tier 1 sewer consumption charge, $16.99 per 1,000 gallons. Tier 2 sewer consumption charge, $21.24 per 1,000 gallons. And a Tier 3 sewer consumption charge of $25.49 per 1,000 gallons.
To be effective.
I said that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
You said the January billing cycle.
It's January 2020.
Yeah, I was thinking that was in conversation, sorry.
That's okay.
so moved.
Joanna, that was at the beginning of the motion,
Sorry,
correct?
Dan.
Should we make it January 1st as opposed to January billing cycle?
Mr. Dean, did you want it January 1st or January 2024?
I said January 2024 because the
Got it.
billing is on a certain day of the month.
Okay.
So if you wanted to make it a date certain, you could say the billing as of January 31st. But the January billing is when
You
it takes
comfortable with the motion as is, January
Yeah,
2024?
That is what you said, Nick.
Yep.
Okay, so moved?
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. I would ask the board to consider, I would entertain a motion that the select board adopt an increase in the sewer flat rates of 4%
So moved.
effective January 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And lastly, I would entertain a motion that the board adopt the schedule of miscellaneous fees and system development charges effective January 1st, 2024, as outlined in the water sewer rate study.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming tonight, and we will continue this conversation. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Keith, thank you. Okay, next order of business this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks again, John.
See you Friday. Thank you.
Good night.
Were there any things to discuss? I know I missed public comments.
We opened 4 bids. Okay, we opened 4 bids. The motion was made to refer them to the Public Works Director to make a recommendation for the board. And if all things run smoothly, then Mr. Dean reported construction would start spring of '24. I don't think you said, wait for the end of the meeting. Although we enjoy company.
Thank you for coming out.
Thanks, Laura.
I know.
I
And just
I
like
like your
that.
passion.
I guess I can clear a room. I'll let it be said. Next order of business, we have a request for a 15-minute parking limit on Front Street. And in order to do so, the Select Board needs to hold 3 public readings, first of which will be this evening. And I would entertain a motion to open the first of 3 public meetings on the 15-minute parking limit.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Stay, John, really.
Aye.
Stay.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. This will be the first public reading. The request would involve the Select Board amending Section 103.7 of the Town Ordinance Parking Regulations. 103.7 refers to a 15-minute parking limit. Currently, there are 4 spaces in town east of the post office entrance, Monday through Saturday. And Mr. Dean, I believe those are the only 4 15-minute parking spaces in Exeter, correct?
Those are the ones, yeah.
Okay. So after 3 public readings, the board could, at that point, take up this request for the 15-minute parking limit. And there is a map in our packet.
Yeah, I'd just like to be clear about how many spaces that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Is it, it's Parallel parking there, right?
Is that all of them?
How many?
My understanding is it was just one. We'll confirm that, but
Yeah.
I believe it's just one.
Yeah, it's not clear.
So for the second reading, Mr. Dean, maybe the business owner requesting the ordinance revision might be in attendance?
Yes.
Okay.
It's also not an alley, it's an actual street to the right there, but that's just me being nitpicky because I live there.
Are there any questions?
So can we be clear about what is being proposed for anyone that's listening at home?
So what is being proposed is a revision of the town ordinance that allows 15-minute parking spaces, of which there are only 4 in town,
Near the post office?
near the post office.
And this is proposing an additional one on Front Street
Correct.
in front of 152 Front Street?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, well, we're not sure how many it's proposing because it's not clear yet. 1 or 2?
The diagram makes it look like 1, but
Okay.
there's three spaces out in front of that. I'm a regular customer, so I know.
I agree that's what the drawing looks like, but for clarity, Mr. Dean, for the second reading,
We'll clarify.
and then maybe have that individual here.
Yes.
Awesome, great. I would now entertain a motion to close the public reading.
Someone.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries 5-0. Next, we have the MRI cyclical reevaluation contract for the Select Board to review and, if so inclined, to authorize for us to sign. This is for the reevaluations that MRI will be conducting, Mr. Dean, between now and April?
Yes, as of the values as of next April 1st.
As of next April. This is included in the fee that we are already paying MRI, is that correct, Mr. Dean?
Correct.
So there's no additional funding being requested? Just the board to authorize and sign the document?
Yes, and this is a requirement of the DRA, so that's why it's in front of you tonight. This contract will be submitted to them for approval, and it will meet all of the assessing standards board requirements that are out there.
Any questions?
Yeah, well, I don't have a question as well as a statement. There is a bill proposed, and I only have the title of it, but it has to do with making sure the valuation is at 100% for the properties that we're looking at. I know that we've gone for, or typically, or had been, that we needed to be within 90% to 110% of the assessed value or market value of the properties, but this one is saying we need to be at 100%, which is difficult.
Thank you. Any other questions? If there are none, then I would entertain a motion that the board authorize signature of the MRI reevaluation contract.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And our next order of business is the annual Riverwoods tax agreement.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I am going to recuse myself as I cannot serve 2 masters.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I'm also going to recuse myself.
Okay. That leaves us with a quorum. All 3 of us.
Should I also, just kidding.
It's like an HDC meeting that had 2 properties on High Street, and I was in a butter to one, and one of the other members was in a butter to the second case.
Happens.
Yep.
It happens.
Well, it's a large historic district, so.
Mr. Dean, I noticed this agreement is slightly different from those in the past. Could you just walk us through what's changed here? They seem to have consolidated the 3.
Yeah, it's actually, they did this last year. They brought the woods, the ridge, and the boulders into a single agreement. The language is the same for all 3 campuses. And it used to be that there were 3 agreements, 3 separate agreements for each campus. But this covers all of the campuses in one agreement.
Okay. And would you like the agreement read into the record?
I think it would be a good idea to read it into the record, yes.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you? The agreement.
Now comes the Town of Exeter by and through its Select Board, hereinafter called Town, and the Riverwoods Company at Exeter, New Hampshire, formerly Life Care Services of New Hampshire, Inc., doing business as Riverwoods at Exeter, hereinafter Riverwoods, and agree as follows. By December 1st, 2023, Riverwoods will pay the town real estate taxes for land and buildings owned by Riverwoods and located at the 3 campuses known as the Woods, the Ridge, and the Boulders, which collectively comprise the Riverwoods Company at Exeter, New Hampshire, and the land and buildings. The real estate taxes will be calculated by multiplying the tax rate times the assessed value of the land and buildings owned by Riverwoods as follows. The residential units will pay the full tax rate, state, municipal, county, and school. The buildings for healthcare residents will not pay any tax, state, municipal, county, or school. The remainder of land and buildings, including the land used for final calculations of density under the land use ordinance of the Town of Exeter and outbuildings, will pay the full tax rate, state, municipal, county, and school. And the land not needed for the final calculation of density under the land use ordinance of the Town of Exeter, which is in current use, will pay taxes at the full state, municipal, county, and school rate for current use property. And 3 parties to this agreement recognize that those portions of the development that support both the buildings for health and care residents and the residential units will be taxed on a pro rata basis. This agreement on principle shall not preclude either party from questioning the precise percentage amounts allocated to the taxable and non-taxable portions, nor the assessed value of the taxable portions of the land and buildings. In witness thereof, the parties hereto have entered into this agreement this 16th day of October 2023.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any questions from either you or Selectman Powell?
No, this language hasn't changed over the years.
Then I would entertain a motion. To enter into the PILOT agreement for the 2023 tax year, incorporating the 3 Riverwoods campuses, being the Woods, the Ridge, and the Boulders, and authorize the Select Board to sign the agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 3-0 with 2 recusals. I met with the town manager and assistant town manager in our weekly meeting last Thursday, and we were discussing the work that former Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf and I had done as a subcommittee, working committee, on looking at our boards and committees, and we'd gone through multiple drafts. And earlier this year, Selectman Chartrand, when you were first selected, we looked at the final draft, and the board lost my train of thought. The board reviewed the final draft, and we incorporated the recommendations. We voted to incorporate the recommendations that were made. And one of those was to look at the committees as a whole, which ones, if any, needed to be consolidated with others. Maybe, if any, boards needed to be sunsetted for a period of time, or some should just be left alone. And certainly we've had a problem with the number of members for certain committees, meeting quorums. I know the board has already addressed that with the Communications Advisory Committee, where we voted to reduce the number of voting members so that they could take care of their quorum problem. But there are some boards and committees that to do so would need to go to town meeting, particularly Water and Sewer Committee. If anything were to be done with the Heritage Commission or HTC, those 3, for examples, would require vote of town meeting to make any changes. So we thought this might be a prudent time to continue with the subcommittee's work to bring any recommendations back to the board before the end of the year, so that if anything does need to go on the warrant, it can, number one. And number two, if there are some committees that we can help out with reducing numbers or playing around with making sure they have a quorum. And then also looking to see if some can be consolidated.
Mr. Chair?
Selectman Sharkey.
I would be happy to volunteer to work with you on that. I think I have the least commitments in terms of committees to represent from the select board, so I'd be happy to do that work with you.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to Selectman Chartrand taking over
Not at all.
from the Selectwoman
Thank you
Roundtree?
for doing it.
I'll tell you, actually came up at my last energy committee that it might be time to combine with the sustainability committee. Although I think sustainability has terms and the energy committee does not. But they have commonalities, but they are also have diversions. And so it makes sense at this point, because the energy committee has accomplished so many things to bring to bring that energy, and I always have to use it. It's a pun, but not a pun. To the sustainability committee, and then they can act as ad hoc crossovers. That some people are interested in each side. So that's already been discussed, and I think not with sustainability, but with energy anyway. It's a fine idea.
And that idea has actually been discussed previously with town staff, and I know the same staff member works with both committees. And yeah, I mean, the Energy Committee does have a lot of energy. I mean, they've accomplished a lot of successful initiatives for this town, and there's a lot of talent on the Sustainability Committee.
There is.
And I think that working collaboratively is one. And then they can always do a subcommittee, sort of like the Tree Committee has done with Conservation Commission. I mean, talk about another committee that's accomplished a lot. So, okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to rep that idea to sustainability, see how it goes over.
And Mr. Dean, when would you want a recommendation, if any, warrant articles needed to be drafted?
I think ideally we'd like to see something if mid-December is not too soon. If not mid-December, I would say an out date would be the first meeting in January that you have.
So if we get together, let's say early November, and we could have something back no later than the December.
Probably need to run it through this board before we.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Come back here.
Yeah, and the board's in question.
Yeah.
So maybe the first meeting in December. Is that
back to the board?
That would be good.
Back to the select board?
Yes.
And having routed any suggestions through the impacted committees?
Let's talk about that first. Do we want, what's the proper route there?
Yeah, I don't
I don't want to go losing people because we're throwing around an idea before we've even discussed it.
Yeah, I mean.
What do you suggest?
Well, the chairman and I have talked about the trouble that the Heritage Commission is having and the HDC is having, keeping or getting new members. And we were successful in getting a new Heritage Commission member who is very excited, so I'm very happy with that, and expect things to be a little more active. And I think that I mentioned it at an HDC meeting, and they were a little more concerned about the duties that might change. So I really think that we need to give those boards an opportunity to say yes or no, because those are both would have to go on the ballot.
So perhaps bringing recommendations back to the select board December 4th, that would give each board member an opportunity within a couple of weeks, and then maybe the first week in January, Mr. Dean, with a final recommendation. Does that give you enough time?
Yeah, that would work.
That's on you.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Can I ask
Please.
this came up during the Conservation Commission meeting. We were looking at their bylaws, and one of the things in the bylaws says that a full member can only serve 2 terms, and then they have to go to an alternate, but it's not clear how long they have to be an alternate. There was some discussion about what if there wasn't a vacancy, and then I realized, of course, there would be, because an alternate would be moving up and would leave an alternate space available, but that's still something we have to address, so I don't know if you guys want to do it at that point level. They don't know if they can change that because they're going by the select board.
So if I understand correctly, the select board would appoint a member to a term.
Right.
If they re-up, then they have a second term that the board would appoint them to, and then if they wanted to continue to serve.
Can only go 2 consecutive full terms, and then they have to go back to they have to go to an alternate. But it's not clear for how long. So one of the questions was, is that still necessary? And the second one is, if it is still necessary, how long would they have to be as an alternate? It would be until...
How long do they have to rotate into
Right, it's just not
before
clear.
they could go back into a full member?
You're
Okay,
right.
I get it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
Out of curiosity, Mr. Dean, do you know the history of the bylaw that Selectwoman Belanger is referring to?
For the Conservation Commission?
Yeah.
I'd have to research it. I'm not sure how long it's been in place.
If you could, and get that to Selectman Chartrand and I, so that we can review that.
You can do that.
Awesome.
Sure.
Thank you.
Some of the land use boards, I think, are required to have either bylaws and/or rules of procedure, which actually are different things. But the planning board used to do the same thing, just out of not out of necessity, but just out of courtesy to the members, but I don't think it was ever written down.
Well,
And I don't think they do it anymore.
Currently, because we're on alternate, so. That's another thing we can discuss is recruiting for, we have multiple boards and committees that have glaring vacancies.
And I do have a plan to make the Heritage Commission more well-known by doing some TV shows, but that's to be discussed at Wednesday's meeting, which is in conflict with the 91A meeting, by the way. So I might not have a quorum because people are going to learn how not to talk to each other.
Well, that is important as well.
Outside of a quorum. On that note.
Anything else before we move on to regular business? Great, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
for
happy to help. I have capacity.
We do not have any abatements, credits, or exemptions. We do have an interesting 91A, not 91A, that's Wednesday. E911 recommendation, Mr. Dean, you were going to do a little homework on this for me, and
Yeah, so the ordinance says that a public hearing is required for a change like this, so we would actually schedule the public hearing at a subsequent board meeting to notice people in accordance with the recommendation that's being made.
so typically when we get the recommendations, it's for one or more properties on a street, or the streets being renamed, or the renumbering on a street. Could you just explain what the difference, I think I know the answer, but for everybody watching, what's the difference between this recommendation and why a public hearing is necessary?
These are new proposed roads.
Okay.
And that's at the core of the recommendation.
That makes sense.
Boulder Brook is a new road?
No, that one just has number changes, but the recommendation number 1 is a new road.
Got it. Thank you.
Is that part of the E911 new process of preventing us from having duplicate road names? Is that all new roads go through this process again? Yeah.
That is my understanding.
When would you like to schedule this, Mr. Dean?
So we would give a 10-day notice on this. So likely it would be the first meeting in November of the board.
The 6th?
Yes.
That gives you ample time?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Terrific. Then I'll segue into your town manager's report, please.
All right, thank you. 2 meetings to report on. The leadership group, again, met on October 5th, and that's the smaller group of department heads. Had an opportunity to meet with them and discuss engagement, which was a great topic to be able to discuss with the group. We did have an E-team meeting on the budget on October 6th, and that went well. I was able to attend Town Council's retirement party on October 6th, so sends his regards and thanks to the town for all the years of service. And
Was it wild?
It was very nice, and Attorney Mitchell made some remarks, and he said he's not used to public speaking, actually, which kind of surprised me, or said he didn't like to speak publicly.
He's a behind-the-scenes kind of
behind-the-scenes kind of guy, so went very well. Corey Stevens went with me, our finance director, so that was a good representation of the town.
Awesome.
Our general government subcommittee met on October 12th, so we were able to go through that with the budgets for general government, and it was a successful meeting, so I thought that went very well. I was able to attend a Health Trust Board meeting on October 11th for rate setting purposes, and that went according to plan. Our health insurance, I think the board understands, is up 10%, and that number was the result of, or stood the rating process, so that's where it sits. Pickpocket Dam grant application was submitted today, October 16th, so that is in the queue.
Good news.
The fire department held a burn on October 14th on Epping Road, so they burned a home down for a training exercise, so that went well. And I wanted to say my thanks to Kristen Murphy, who was able to secure the EECBG grant, $200,000 for the town. And it was a great get. And it is one of 12 grants nationally that was granted. So hats off to Kristen and her group.
Fantastic.
They did a super job. So
Can you tell us what it's for?
it's for weatherization and energy improvements on manufactured homes.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, great. $200,000 to the town. And then we were able to confirm the deliberative session will be February 3rd, 2024, so you can mark your calendars. I had a chance to talk to the town moderator about that, and that is all set. And then I also wanted to thank the police department for their simulator exercise last week. That went very well, and it was interesting to be part of it, and grateful to be led by such a great department. And I think that's all I had, unless there are questions.
Thank you, Mr. D. Any questions for the town manager?
Just for public service, when is Halloween and the Halloween parade?
Trick or treat is October 31st. The Halloween parade, I'd have to get back to you on the date.
Yeah, I can look it up.
Then the bi-weekly.
That's right. Thank you very much.
But trick or treating is the 31st.
31st.
Okay. Select Board Committee reports. Let's start down this way.
I have no report.
No report. Okay.
We had a communications advisory committee meeting. Gosh, was that last week? It's hard to remember. Maybe it was, was it 2 weeks ago? I can tell you. I think it was last week. No, it was 2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago.
It was 2 weeks ago. But it was a good meeting. We are chugging along and have a, I think that there are reasonable requests coming forward, which is going to be good.
Excellent. Terrific. Thank you. Selectwoman Gilman.
It was the 5th, Molly.
It was the 5th, 2 weeks ago. Oh my gosh.
Yes, we were speaking of the Energy Committee, and we had a meeting last week. I'm too close to the mic. And I wanted to remind everybody to look at the Energy Committee's website to review the rebates that are available, because there's more than people think, and especially we're coming into the winter season, that there are opportunities available to any resident. But we also talked about this program called Window Dressers, and it's insulating window inserts. And I know if you are a starving college student or someone getting minimum wage, or someone anyway, of that plastic cling wrap kind of thing that you used your hairdresser to shrink wrap your windows. Well, it's like that, only it's a permanent, has it permanently framed. So you'd insert it into your windows, and it's still that thin plastic, but it's at least a barrier. Excuse me. But it involves volunteer work, and what happens is somebody comes here and teaches whoever's volunteering. Volunteers go out and measure people's houses with their permission, but get the exact measurements for the houses, the windows in question, and then this company will come and do a build out. And they show us in this workshop and they're not just doing one house, but they're doing several in the town on one day, and they do the installation to make sure everything goes correctly. So it's something we're looking at. There's a demonstration of it happening up in Lebanon or somewhere up there. There are a couple members are going to see if we can do it. And one of the questions that came up was where was a good place for this company that builds them to do that work. and so they were asking if the town hall would be appropriate. And I think that's a question for us in Public Works, town manager, if that doesn't have a lot of heavy machinery involved, but it is a construction kind of project. I was a little concerned about the floor damage, if there would be any.
Yeah.
But I'll find out more about it when after the demonstration is seen. And so they're inserts that go in, and you remove them every year and put them in your garage, and then bring them back out for the winter.
Nice.
And I think that is all I had since 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Selectwoman Belanger.
So October 4th, we had our first public meeting on the pedestrian parking and traffic study. There was a stakeholder meeting earlier in the day, and then at 6:30 that evening, there was a public input session. Throughout the day, approximately 30 to 40 participants, which was great. I didn't attend during the day one, but I was there at night. And at that point, we had 325 participants on the survey. The survey closed this past Saturday, and we do have our follow-up meeting tomorrow, another meeting, I should say, for next steps. So I'll have more specific numbers for my next report. Conservation Commission, October 10th. Russ did the grant. I already talked about the question. The only thing I'll add is that the commission unanimously supported the application for the dam removal. And that, I'm sure, got to you in time. Okay. All boards meeting, that was last Wednesday. Just want to thank everyone for participating. I feel that we're making strides on that, and it's really good to do. Police department, I want to thank the chief and all the police officers who were there to talk us through their training. It was really an eye-opening experience for me personally, so I do want to thank them for that. Planning board was October 12th that night. We had 2 applications, one for 8 Commerce Way for a 2-story addition and additional parking, and one for 158 Epping Road for a minor subdivision of the existing 3.8 acre parcel into 2 lots. Both were approved. Upcoming tomorrow night Wednesday night, the Right to Know training, and Thursday there's going to be a joint Housing Advisory Planning Board Commission site walk in Dover for John and Maggie Randolph's project there for workforce housing, and it has some conservation. And then, of course, I'm looking forward to the all-day Friday general budget recommendations committee meeting, attending that.
Fantastic. Thank you. All my committee meetings are tomorrow, so I'll get back to you on the 31st. But also attended the all boards meeting. I want to thank all of the volunteers and chairs that came for that. And we got some good feedback for the next one, which is scheduled for February. Russ did a great job, as did Bob Plawacki. I also participated in the police simulation training, and I want to thank Chief Poulin and Deputy Chief McCain and the officers that were there, because we not only simulated some real-life events, but they took about a half hour to debrief us at the beginning and go through what the laws are. And it was interesting to see what the RSAs are and then the higher standards that we hold our team here in Exeter. Was great to learn that. And, it was, you said it was eye-opening. It was, you got a great appreciation for what potentially they could face on a daily basis. And
Then the compassion. I walked away from there with more a feeling of the compassion for the fire department and police. Sorry to interrupt.
yeah, no,
but-
it was also, it was just great to see how passionate
Yeah.
the officers were in training us. Like, this is what they do, this is what they're invested in our public safety. And to walk through some of the scenarios as we were, we were role-playing that we were police officers, and you just got a great appreciation of what they could walk into at any given time. And how, I'll use myself as an example, didn't always do the right thing, and they would walk you through how you could have better done that, it's why that's not my profession.
And this is training that they go through?
This is training that they go through. They have this training simulation that the chief explained. The town obtained not through taxpayer money, but from outside funds that they were able to get. And right now, they can only do this training in the DPW training room, and they have to reserve it months in advance. And it's really not ideal because it's a small room. They have to set up a screen, and they have to calibrate the machine. And I'm going to be optimistic when the public safety complex passes in March. One of the things they'll have is have a conference room big enough to set this up full time. And there are all sorts of different modules that the officers can come in and practice on. And the chief was very excited about the opportunity that they would be able to utilize this on a daily basis. But the different modules and the training was just outstanding. Absolutely outstanding.
They did role play, really. I mean, I will tell you, on all full disclosure, I could not do that part of it, but I did sit and watch and learned a lot. Being in a room with dark and the thing, I have a vertigo issue. So anyway, but it was role play. It was, it took me a few days to really process everything I learned that in that hour and a half there. It was important for me. Yeah.
So Mr. Dean participated in some of the modules. I participated in some of the modules, as did our assistant town manager, Melissa Roy, who's not here tonight. But I think, Russ, you'd agree, no offense to either one of us, could add that to her pedigree. She'd make a great officer.
She handled
She handled those situations
Why am I
extremely
not
well.
surprised? Why
She did a great
Ever
job.
I'm in trouble, I want Melissa there. That's for sure. Though
She
you
was just a
both
natural.
did really well too.
Oh,
so.
come on, I shot myself.
Only one.
I managed to pull my whole holster out at one of the incidents, so.
You shot your holster more than you shot.
So the star of the show was our
once again.
manager.
Incredible.
Anyway, but thanks again to the chief for inviting us. That was great.
I was sorry to miss it. I messaged with him a bit too.
We have one piece of correspondence, and this is pertaining to a group of citizens that put together a petition, and I know I was the recipient of this email, as well as Mr. Dean and Chief Poulin, and both Chief Poulin and Mr. Dean responded immediately to the individual that sent this to us with some ideas and with some discussion moving forward. And I know for the Chili Fest, Chief Poulin indicated it was not a problem to do those closures that were suggested here. And in speaking with Mr. Dean afterwards, we thought for particularly Swayze Parkway, when there's going to be any type of a permitted event, as part of the permit, Parks and Rec would work with the police department. There's already an ordinance that allows them to do that, but they could do not street closure, but the one-way parking during the events that would allow.
Temporary restriction area. I wondered about that. Thank you. That was going to be one of my questions.
So, and thank you, Mr. Dean, both to you and Chief Poulin for jumping on this.
You're welcome.
So is there any action we need to take, or is the police department's going to handle this?
Through Parks and Rec and the permitting.
Yeah, only
Yeah,
if we
that's
want to
awesome.
do something permanent.
Yep.
They're just asking for something to change on that one day, right?
Well,
Anytime
other
is an
events, yeah.
Great.
Mr. Chair, can I just, I
Please,
meant to,
yeah.
one more note on my report is thank you, Public Works, Department of Public Works, every month they give a report on their Facebook page on HelpSee numbers. But for the end of the year, do you think I could get a report for the entire year?
Sure.
Thank you.
We can do that.
Tonnage that was,
Yeah, it's really working out. I mean, it looks like it's working out, but it's easier to get the numbers all in one place and compare. And
It's a good request, thank you. Reviewing the board calendar, our select board meeting scheduled for the remainder of this year, 2023, is October 31st. Ready? November 6th.
Wait, October 31st?
Yes. No, October 30th, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That got me trick-or-treating, Julie.
I know.
October 30th.
October
Yep.
30th, November 6th, November 20th, December 4th, and December 18th. And then TBD, the week between Christmas and New Year's, if we need to come in briefly.
Okay. And then there is something on my calendar for Wednesday,
That's the right to know training.
right to know training.
Library at
Okay.
6:30.
Okay. Oh, I
And-
even wrote it in there. Look.
As Selectman Belanger reminded us, the BRC all-day meeting is this Friday.
yeah.
Is that an 8 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. start, Mr. Dean?
8:30.
8:30?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
This is on Friday.
Yeah. Any other business for the board this evening? Okay, seeing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Good night. Thank you, everybody. We're
Thank you.
adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.